All right, everybody, the time has come. This is the cream of the crop. This is my favorite, the list of games that I will play any day in the week because I love them. So get ready to hear me gush about my top 10 favorite tabletop games of all time. Railways of the World. I've always loved railroads ever since I can remember. Before I could even comprehend anything, railroads was something that I loved because my dad and I both shared that. We had an HO scale railroad layout in our basement that took up almost an entire half of our basement with mountains and hills and buildings and people and cars and tons of tunnels and things and trains going around. We would model buildings and trees and paint things. I loved it. And it's where I get all of my love of modeling now, hobby modeling today for 40K and Age of Sigmar and Gaslands and all those other games. It comes from the fact that my father and I used to do it when I was a kid. So I love trains. Railways of the World is the best train game ever. Now, a lot of people will probably disagree with me because they like games like the 18XX series, which are super complex industry style games, and they're not exactly for me. And again, this is my favorite games. This isn't the best games ever. This is my favorite games. I love this game because, number one, it's super simple to teach, but there's a super depth of strategy to this game. I love that part of it. I love that it's very thematic. It feels like you're building a railroad network when you're putting down the tiles and the turns and the twists and the crossovers, city to city, creating these links where you can ship goods back and forth between them to score points. And your company is constantly growing in value. Sometimes you have to take loans, purposefully take loans so that you can get that injection of money into your company so that you can start building a bigger network that's going to reap you the benefits later in the game. It's such an elegantly designed game. And again, it's Martin Wallace. Martin Wallace designed Steam, Age of Steam, Railroad Tycoon with Glenn Drover, and this is basically a product of Martin Wallace's mind, his railroad mind. And I adore this game. The replayability is off the charts with all the different maps that you can get. Even the maps that come in the box, that comes with 2 Eastern United States and the Mexico map for 2 players. And it plays great at all player counts. As a matter of fact, it plays humongously awesome at like 5 and 6 players with those big, gigantic maps. You can even put together the Eastern and the Western map together if you want to. You got Japan, you got England, you got Europe all over the place. So many different maps. Europe is my favorite map of all of them. I think it's just a wonderful experience playing that one. This one is just, it marries thematics, feeling like you're building a network, with really deep gameplay, but a really simple teaching and learning curve for this game. It's the best railroad game there is. And the production is stellar. Railways of the World is the best. Concordia. I'm a sucker for a rondel. So you know that I love Matt Gert's games because all of his games have rondels, except for the one that I'm talking about right now, which is my favorite of his games. Concordia doesn't have a rondel anywhere. It's kind of funny. I love rondels, but this one doesn't have it. It's my favorite. I've said many times that Concordia could be the best game I've ever played, the best designed game I've ever played. Again, with the word that I'm going to say a lot probably, it's an elegant design. It's the first time I've ever seen the mechanism where you have a hand of cards, and they're your action cards, and you play a card to take an action. Next turn, you play a card. When you want to play those cards again, you have to play another card to take them all back. It's the first place I ever saw that. I don't know if it's the first time it's ever been used, but it's the first time I experienced it, and it's one of my favorite mechanics at this point. Any game past it that has this, I dig it even more because of that concept. It's just an exciting mechanic, and then you're buying cards off the track to give you better actions and to sort of hone your strategy that you're choosing. Like you pick certain cards to combo together to get that strategy you're looking for. And I also love, this I think is probably the best thing about the game, is the cards that you buy that give you better actions to add your hand. So you're kind of like doing a little bit of deck building in a sense. It's not really deck building, but it's kind of like that. But my favorite part of it is that those cards all have victory conditions at the bottom. So as you're playing and building a deck, you're not only building good actions, but you're building end game scoring conditions for yourself. So you want to hoard the ones that you're doing well at, and you see like, oh, I have a lot of these, but I'm not doing that well on the board. So maybe I need to work towards that. this game there's such an ebb and flow to the strategies of this game, and you're building the networks around the board and moving your guys around and collecting the resources and stuff. Concordia is, again, a game that I cannot say a single negative thing about. Now, there's plenty of games that are coming on the list coming up that I could say some negative things about, but Concordia is one that I think is pretty much perfect. This game is absolutely fantastic. OUTLIVE. Now, this one was such a surprise for me because it's one that I backed on Kickstarter solely because it kind of looked neat. And when it showed up, I fell in love with this on the first play, and every time I play it, I love it more. This is a post-apocalyptic game, and it's broken down into two different phases, the day phase and the night phase. The day phase, you're going out onto the board, where there's all different locations. You got the old dam, you got the forests, you got the old amusement park, a giant a tanker ship, and the cities, and you're scavenging for goods so you can survive. You're collecting ammunition, you're collecting metal, you're collecting electronic parts and canned food and all sorts of things out on the board. And then at the night phase, you go back to your compound and you're building your compounds. You're building rooms that have all sorts of different special abilities that help you outside or help you in your community. And you have to manage the radiation, you have to manage the food and feed your people, you have to have water to feed your people, all kinds of stuff. Now, this is a straight up Euro game, but this Euro game has more theme than just about every Euro game I've ever played. There's even to the point where there's kind of attacking in the game. If you move in on another player's territory, you can try to steal some of their goods, but if they spend some of their ammo, you can't take their goods. It's not too mean, but just a little bit mean. And it adds a fantastic dynamic to the game. The production is great. The artwork on everything is beautiful. The level to which you can customize your compound is fantastic. There's so many different ways you can go with this game. You can collect broken items. You bring them back to your compound, you spend some resources to fix those items. You have a new item, you have a gun, or you have armor, or you have, like a radio or an old PlayStation or something, so you can have fun, so your people are happy. There's so much to this game, and it's so well done. And the only negative thing I have about it is there's a couple of broken rooms that you can build. I tossed them out the door. There's only two copies of one room that is out of the game for me because I don't like them. Because the game has these events that happen, these terrible events that affect everybody in the game, and this room makes you ignore them. And this is such a great dynamic of the game because everybody's kind of, in a way, cooperating to get rid of them because it stunts your progress in the game, and everybody hates them. So everybody's trying to make sure that at least somebody can take care of it by the end of the round so we don't have to deal with the plague anymore or the dust storm or whatever it is. I highly recommend you try this game. Not a lot of people talk about it that I hear about, but man, I will play this game every day in the week because there's a ton to love about OUTLIVE. A Feast for Odin. I'm a huge fan of Uwe Rosenberg. I think he does fantastic games. And it took me quite a while to get into A Feast for Odin. That's mostly because it's really expensive because boy, the box is gigantic and it's got more cardboard in that box than I've ever seen any other game. It's super heavy, but everything is so wonderful looking. It's got beautiful artwork, and the theme is great. Vikings. You're playing Vikings and you're doing every single thing you can imagine a Viking could possibly do. You're going on raids, of course, or you could be a fisherman, or you could be a whaler, or you could raise cattle, or you could, be a leather worker or a blacksmith. Anything you want, you can do in this game. So that's one of the things that's so great about this game is there's such replayability, and each one of the strategies that you can employ with all these different kinds of jobs and combinations of jobs that you could do, there's a humongous depth of strategy to it. Now, I've played this game probably a dozen, 24 times at this point, somewhere in there. And maybe the first 4 or 5 times I played, my score kept going down because I was so excited to try different strategies. And I was dumb and I needed to just focus in on one and learn it. But I needed to try all these different things. This is a game that when I get into it, I want to play it again immediately after because I see all kinds of cool things that I can do. And I'm like, well, I don't have time to do this, but I want to do them the next time. This game just has so much to it. This is another one of those games like the Through the Ages, where this is the only game you ever buy, you've just bought tons of content for that $80 or whatever it costs. I believe that this game is absolutely worth that high price point just because of the sheer amount of content you get. If you stick with it and this is the game that you're going to play, this is definitely going to give you tons and tons and tons and tons of hours of gameplay just in this box. And I think Uwe Rosenberg outdid himself. This is like a very ambitious game. There's like so much going on in it. And it's got such weird mechanisms in it. It's got that whole concept where you're a Viking hoarder, where you're stealing things or crafting things, making things, and you bring them back and you put them in your sort of storage facility thing. And you're sort of playing that Tetris game where you put pieces together so you can make sure you don't lose points because it's negative points, not getting you points, which always makes you feel a little bad. But hey, listen, I'm doing good filling that thing up. And you feel so accomplished when you fill that thing up. And when you play with really good players and you see them buying all these islands and putting things on them, and you're like, how do you possibly get there? But each time you play, you learn a little more about how to get there. This is a game that you can grow with. You can grow your strategies over a long period of time. This is a super meaty game, and I believe it is Uwe Rosenberg's best game. Leaving Earth. This one is one that I am so happy that I discovered, and I discovered it this year, and the reason I did was because somebody asked me, hey, are there any board games about the space race? So I did a little Googling, a little searching, I clicked on the space exploration category on Board Game Geek, and this one came up, and I was like, I never heard of this game before. Where did this game come from? And I started looking into it, and I started to get obsessed with getting this game. So I ordered it from the publisher's website because it's the only place I could find it. And it took 5 months. Now, I don't think it'll take that long for everybody, but they were in a sort of a weird transitionary period. So we had 5 months for this game to show up. And it showed up in a box that is pretty much a shoebox. And I was like, this is weird. I open it up and I'll tell you, the production is gorgeous. But the reason it comes like that is because it is made to order. They make every copy for the person who's going to get that game. And they do a great job because everything about it is wonderful looking. I mean, the artwork is gorgeous and the card quality is great. The tokens are fine. Everything's beautiful about it. This is a game about the space race. You're playing a country and you're trying to be the first to do all of these space accomplishments, whether it's put a man on the moon and bring him home, or just put a man into orbit. And that's less victory points than make it to the moon, but it is an accomplishment. Go to Mars and scan Mars. All sorts of different things. There's all these missions out that you're going to do. And you have to select, what are we going to work towards? And okay, so now you're going to build some rockets. You got those rockets. Those rockets are going to kill people because they're dangerous. So you got to test those rockets. And you do this cool testing thing where you shoot it into space and you look and see, oh, failure, it blew up. So you get rid of the failure out of your deck. So you keep testing it until you're sure that this thing's going to make it. And then sometimes you have to, since Russia's over there trying to get there first, you got to be like, well, we're going to chance it. We're going to chance it and send that up into space. And hopefully you make it to the moon, put your guy on the moon and bring him back home. Somewhere along the line, it might explode and he might die. And that's something you have to kind of deal with in this game. There's so many different technologies you can build: life support, capsules, re-entry, all sorts of different things that you can study and learn and build into your rocket ships. The board is neat because you're going out to all these different planets and stuff. It is such a beautiful game with such a beautiful amount of strategy in it. And I'll tell you, there is a lot of luck in the game. A lot of that luck you can mitigate, but there is some luck. And I've heard people complain about that. I don't find that at all. I think luck is part of the realism of the game. This is a dangerous thing you're doing. You're going out into space and you're going off of our planet with people in little tiny tin cans. There should be some danger to that. This game gives you that. It gives you all of the feelings of a 1960s vibe. The art this looks like a 1960s vibe. It feels like you're building rockets and testing rockets and chancing it by sending your guys out into space. You can even like link up to like space stations with the expansion and like leave supplies behind, and another guy comes by and picks up the supplies and goes on. Oh, man, Leaving Earth. You guys got to check this out. This game is off the hook. I love it so much. I've played this game solo so many times now. Oh, it's just so good. It is good. And it's good multiplayer. As a matter of fact, I like it better multiplayer. A lot of people say this is basically a solo game, but I like it better with multiple people. So Leaving Earth, fantastic game. Please check it out. NEMO'S War. Yet another game that I backed on Kickstarter solely because I love First, Captain Nemo and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and number two, I love nautical themes in games. I thought this game looked good, but when I got it, I was so surprised at how absolutely amazing this game is. There's so much going on in this game. It really does feel like a seagoing high adventure game where you're playing Captain Nemo. First, I love that in the game, you have a demeanor that you pick at the beginning of the game, which is sort of gonna send you in a direction of what Nemo wants to do, whether he's a treasure hunter or if he's trying to take down the imperialists, so he's inciting riots in cities throughout the world, or he's just gonna be the terror of the seas and sinking ships all over the place. There's so many different ways to play based on what demeanor you select. It gives you different victory points for the different things that you can do in the game. Now, what can you do in the game? Well, tons of stuff. Well, you can go hunting for treasure. There's treasure all over the board. You're going around and you're trying to collect this treasure, which you roll the dice to see if you get it. You can go on adventures where you draw a card and you might get treasure from the card, the adventure that you're going on. But all the while, there's these ships that are all over the board, and some of those ships are causing you trouble. And you might have to sink some of those ships. Some of them might be civilian ships, and you're going to get negative notoriety for sinking those ships. And once your notoriety gets to a certain point, the British Navy sends big warships after you, so you throw those into the sack so you can seed the board with more ships, and they're more powerful ships. Man, it's such a neat concept. And it plays into the story of Nemo and what kind of a cold, calculating character he was, because you could sacrifice crew or sacrifice your ship to get bonuses to certain things. But if you fail, you lose those things. So like your ship takes damage or your crew starts to die. And you have all these characters at the bottom that you can literally sacrifice them to get a benefit to whatever you're trying to do in that situation. And sometimes you're like, you don't want to do that because you feel bad that you're doing that. You're killing these people. You're sending them to the dogs to be killed because you need to use them for your benefit. And that's what Captain Nemo would have done. There's just so much about this game. And I want to also say that Ian O'Toole, this is this is a masterpiece from Ian O'Toole. He's the graphic designer and the artist. And it's so evocative of the whole 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea style, like the era that it was written in. He's captured that in this game. The graphic design is beautiful. Ian O'Toole was instrumental in getting this edition of the game made, and we should give him a lot of credit for that because, boy, is this game beautiful. It's a solo game mostly, but I still say that I like it a lot when you're playing it cooperative too. Everybody gets to take a turn basically being in control of the ship and doing things. But there's a lot of collaboration there, but really it's built to be a solo game. And I've played this game dozens of times because I absolutely adore just about everything in this game. I love trying a new demeanor every time. Like I just want to go on adventures this time, or I want to just be a treasure hunter this time. Oh, I want to just sink every ship I could possibly sink in this game. Man, there's just so much fun in this game to be had. I love Nemo's War. Mansions of Madness. I mentioned it earlier during Arkham Horror that I didn't like the previous edition and I love the new edition. Well, Mansions of Madness is the exact same thing. The first edition, I didn't like it. Didn't like the Overlord role, didn't like the way the puzzles worked, didn't like anything about it. Just felt boring. Well, second edition completely turned that around. And I'll tell you, Mansions of Madness second edition is the game that I play the most. Just played it again the other day. Every time there's an expansion, I'm going to buy it. And the reason that is because I love experience in my games. I love to feel something. I love to have, emotions about what's going on in the game. And I like my games to have a story to them. Mansions of Madness is the game that has the best story that you'll ever get. I absolutely adore it. Every single one of the missions is different. It's a different style of thing. One time you might be in a mansion with a bunch of monsters running around. You have to kill them. The next one might be an Agatha Christie style mystery that you have to solve who the murderer is. And there's some supernatural stuff going on too. The next one might be, you're on a runaway train and it's almost like Pandemic style where you have to be cleaning up all these different things so that it don't overwhelm you and you lose. Every game feels different. It is such a wonderful experience to play this game. And there's so many tiles and rooms and monsters and characters. I mean, if you get all the expansions, there's almost overwhelming choices of characters and scenarios that you can play. And the app integration is really well done because I say that you can play with a laptop sitting at the end of the table, and a lot of people would say, oh, it feels like you're playing a video game. It feels like you're playing a video game. And yeah, that might be true. But if you play it with a phone and that one player is the only player reading things off of it, it doesn't really feel like you're playing a video game anymore. Everybody's focused in on the board. And there's just so much meat in this game. There's so much story. There's so many things to experience. I still replay old scenarios because they slightly change. Different monsters, different room layouts sometimes. Man, Mansions of Madness is really, really well done for an experienced game with a really solid story. Forbidden Stars. I've been saying lately that Mansions of Madness overtook Forbidden Stars as my favorite of all time. Well, it hasn't, because I did some real thinking about it. I really looked inside of my brain and decided which one was better. The only reason that I didn't put Mansions of Madness higher was because sometimes Mansions of Madness, some players might not have the best of time. You might not find the items that you want for your specific character, so it wasn't as good a game as the last one. Well, Forbidden Stars is great every time. This one is kind of sort of similar to Star Trek Ascendancy and Twilight Imperium in some sense, because it's a space game where you got ships and ground troops and planets and you're exploring. But boy, I love 40K, and this is 40K in space. I dig this game so much. And I think one of the main things I love about it the most, that kind of makes it different from those other games, is they have objectives that are littered around the board. So it keeps you on the move constantly. You have your fleets of ships and you take the planet you need and you score that objective. Well, guess what? Now you got to go across the entire galaxy to get to your next one. So you're on the move. You can't just turtle up and everybody's like trying to get at you, but they can't. No, you got to leave. You got to go over across the galaxy and get that objective. So it keeps the action moving constantly. There's a dynamic that shifts throughout the game constantly. Sometimes you're dealing with the Eldar, and sometimes you have to go across and deal with the orcs, because you have satisfied this objective. Now you have to go deal with these people to get your other objectives. There's a ton of fun in this game. And the combat mechanics, they're very, I would say, fiddly. They could almost be their own game. This could be an LCG. It's a card game with dice. This could be its own game outside of Forbidden Stars. But what it really does is when you play it so often, you start to get to know the cards in the combat, and you get to know how best to use the dice when you roll them, that it starts to become an event when a combat happens. And I really love that. The production is stellar. The game mechanics are fantastic. The theme is terrific in this game. The only problem is that there's an expansion out in the ether somewhere that'll never happen because Fantasy Flight and GW had to break up, and now I'm not going to get my Forbidden Stars expansion. Well, hopefully somebody picks it up and makes that expansion. I would buy it in 2 seconds because Forbidden Stars is one of the greatest games I've ever played. Glory to Rome. Now, I know a lot of people out there who listen to the podcast are confused as to why Glory to Rome is only number 2 on my top 10 games of all time. Well, when you get to number 1, you'll understand, and I'll explain it to you. But let's talk about Glory to Rome. This game is 100% a masterpiece. This card game is the most well-designed, and it's the perfect game. Carl Chudyk outdid himself with this game. And it's just a beautiful game because there's so much going on to it. I've played this game so many times at this point, and every time I play, I still find a new combo of cards I've never seen before. It's like a vast amount of content in just like a big stack of cards. Boy, is this game great. Essentially, what the theme of the game is you're trying to rebuild Rome after it burned. So you're trying to build buildings that give you abilities. And it's very difficult to kind of explain how it all works, but you do the lead and follow concept where I'm going to lead this action and everybody can go around the table and decide to follow that action if they so choose. And when you carry it out, it's either, collecting resources or using these resources to build a building or adding resources to a building to complete it and then getting the actions, or you could bank those resources to score you points at the end of the game. So many different things. But what really makes it great is the buildings and their abilities, because there are a vast number of combos that will basically take you to the win. And this is what's so cool about it. The combos are broken. And they're broken on purpose, because the goal of the game is to find the winning strategy. when you're building those cards and you're looking at the cards and you're trying to decide, how am I going to put these together? And if you played it before and you know a lot of the cards, you could be like, okay, I see this and I see this. If only I could have that other card, this will win me the game. And then you just start mining for that card. And when you get that card and you enact that plan, and all of a sudden you go from having like 10 points to 40 points in like a couple of rounds because you just did this crazy combo of stuff that just exploded you with points. That's how this game is played. You're looking for that play. Now, some games don't go that way. Sometimes everybody doesn't get the great combo and it just goes at a normal pace. But that's really the core of the game. You're looking for that superhuman play that's going to destroy everybody else. And then you play again. And the next time your guy across the table, he finds the combo and he destroys you. This game there's so much in looking for the combos. It's like a Magic the Gathering player's delight, I would think. Like they're always looking for the cool combos. Well, you're trying to find those combos in the game. And like I said before, I played it so many times, I still see new combos being enacted all the time. Boy, do I love Glory to Rome. It's such a fantastic game with fantastic artwork. The black box, I think, is beautiful. A lot of people don't like it, but I love it. I think it's gorgeous artwork. It's very minimalist graphic design style. And it pisses me off that this game is not out there for people to get. I want people to be playing this game because this game deserves to be in the hands of the people. People need to have this game and play this game because I think it's the best game that's ever been designed. Glory to Rome is a fantastic game. Masterpiece. There is not a single flaw in this game. I love it so much. I will play this game on my deathbed and still love it as much as the first time I played it. Glory to Rome is wonderful. Dungeons and Dragons. Yes, this is not a board game list. This is a tabletop game list. And I couldn't bring myself to not put this game as number one because truly it defined my life. When I found this game back in, I think, 1992, Steve and I found it, we started playing it. It opened my eyes to a brand new world of things that I never knew existed before. Really, this game changed the course of my life. I work doing board game media now, and I owe it to Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson for designing this game back in 1976 or whatever it was. And now it's a game that I still play. I love Glory to Rome. It is my favorite board game, card game that ever existed. But I don't play it nearly as much as I play Dungeons & Dragons. I still play Dungeons & Dragons every 2 weeks. I do some kind of role-playing every 2 weeks. And I've been doing it since 1992. Like at least once a week or every 2 weeks. I can't even imagine a life where I wasn't playing Dungeons & Dragons. This game has stood the test of time. It's gone through many different editions that have changed and altered, but the core of the game is still there. And it is the most exciting, the most fun, the most fulfilling. I get to be creative. I get to think about problems and solving them and going through challenges. And I get to do it with my best friends in the world around a table. Dungeons & Dragons has influenced so many things in this world. So many video games, so many other board games, so many gamification comes from Dungeons & Dragons, essentially leveling up, getting experience, getting rewards for doing certain things. Dungeons & Dragons has impacted so many people's lives, and it's had the most drastic influence on my life. Not only did it have an impact on my life, I love and adore this game more than anything else in the world. So Dungeons & Dragons is clearly my number one favorite game of all time. All right, gang, well, there it is, my top 50 favorite games of all time. Hope you enjoyed the list, getting a little peek into my mind, seeing what types of games I like. Well, if you enjoyed it, stick around, because over the next couple of months, Steve and Chris are going to be doing their top 50s as well. And of course, if you like our videos, please do us a favor and subscribe to the channel. Click the bell icon, you'll be alerted whenever we put up some videos. And until next time, have a good one, everybody.
Thanks so much, everybody. If you've enjoyed this video, please do us a giant favor by subscribing to the channel and clicking that wacky bell icon. If you're into board games, miniatures games, role-playing games, we have a bunch of audio podcasts you might enjoy. You can find those at thesecretcabal.com or on iTunes and Stitcher.